Hi, I'm Charlie, 31, and 3 weeks ago I torched my entire career with one word: no. I'd spent 5 years breaking my back for a company that repaid me with lies, gaslighting, and a slap in the face called Bella. When they passed me over for a promotion and then had the audacity to ask me to train the very woman who got my job, I snapped. Politely, professionally, but make no mistake, I snapped. Let's rewind for a second. Back when I joined the company, I was 26, still hungry and naive enough to think working hard meant something. Logistics analyst. Entry level. But I liked the numbers, liked solving puzzles no one else could. And I was good at it, so good, in fact, that people started handing me their messes. You know the type. Hey, you're smart. Can you fix this? Then boom, suddenly you're the guy who knows everything but still gets invited to meetings as optional. Over time, I became the unofficial band-aid. Systems down? Call Charlie. Clients mad? Call Charlie. Need someone to clean up a failed project over the weekend? Charlie. And I did it all, thinking eventually someone upstairs would notice. I was wrong. Then the senior operations manager role opened up. It was my job and everything but title, so I applied, heart pounding like a puppy trying to impress a room full of suits. Steve, my manager, pulled me aside and said I was a shoo-in. We even did mock interviews. I prepped like I was training for the Olympics. I even bought a new shirt. Interviews came and went. Executives nodded like they were already welcoming me aboard. I crushed it. VP even smiled and said, I think you know how this is going to go. Yeah. I knew. Just not the way I thought. They gave it to Bella. Bella, who I had trained. Bella, who once asked me what a purchase order was 2 months in. Bella, who smiled like she was still doing a tour of the office 3 months after being hired. She wasn't bad, just ordinary. Safe. You don't hand the keys to the Ferrari to someone who doesn't know where the ignition is. Steve called me in, gave me that sad manager face, and dropped the bomb. Leadership experience, he said. Bella had more of it. Which was funny, considering she asked me to rewrite her client emails every other week. I nodded. Didn't scream. Didn't even throw a stapler. Just said, okay, and walked out. But the real insult came the next morning. Steve asked me to train her. He actually said it with a straight face, like I should be honored. Like I should help her succeed in the role that was stolen out from under me. And that's when I realized, I wasn't angry. I was done. No, I said. Just one word. But it was nuclear. Steve blinked like I'd slapped him. Then he did the thing managers do when they're losing control. He threatened me. Said I was hurting my future, being uncooperative, and letting my attitude show. Attitude? Sir, you handed me a knife and asked me to teach someone else how to use it. They pulled me into HR that afternoon. Said refusing to train Bella could be insubordination. That I was not being a team player. So I asked one question. If I wasn't qualified for the role, how am I qualified to teach someone else to do it? Silence. Then Brenda from HR tried to redirect the energy of the conversation like I was a busted printer. I told them they could write me up, PIP me, put my picture on the wall of difficult employees. I wasn't going to be a tool for their bad decision-making. From that day on, I clocked in, did exactly what my job required, and nothing more. No overtime. No weekend saves. No emotional support duties. I became the ghost of effort. And you know what happened? The entire department fell apart. But I'll get to that. The collapse began slow. Subtle. Ronnie from operations started emailing me at odd hours. Urgent this, emergency that. I replied once. You'll need to check with Bella. She's the senior ops manager now. That was it. No explanation. No snark. Just truth. Anna from accounts? Same deal. She used to send me spreadsheets with half the data missing and expect me to patch them up before morning. That Monday, I didn't even open her email until noon. Forwarded it straight to Bella with a polite, "Looks like this is your department now." Anna didn't reply. She just stopped emailing me altogether. I think the silence hurt her more than anything I could have said. Meanwhile, Bella was unraveling. Fast. First day in her new role, she tried to lead a client status meeting. I sat in the back, sipping coffee like it was a murder mystery podcast. She stumbled through the agenda, called the wrong client by name twice, and blanked when someone asked about a report timeline. She kept glancing at me like I was going to jump in. I didn't. Not my job. By Thursday, she already missed 2 project deadlines and sent a Q2 report using Q3 data. The client flipped out and demanded escalation. Steve ended up on the call trying to smooth things over while Bella stared at her notes, like they were written in ancient Greek. It was glorious. And Steve? Oh, Steve was sweating. He started showing up earlier. Hovering more. Asking me, "Hey Charlie, could you just take a quick look at this?" I smiled every time and said, "You should ask Bella." I wasn't being petty, I was being precise. Then came the HR ambush. They called me in again. Said my performance was technically acceptable but showing signs of disengagement. Brenda was there, of course. Still doing that tight-lipped, HR smile like she was trying not to scream. She slid a paper across the table. Performance improvement plan. The corporate guillotine. I laughed. Out loud. Right in the middle of that sterile conference room. And then I reached into my bag, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to her. Steve looked confused. Brenda looked nervous. "My resignation," I said. "Effective immediately." Steve sputtered. You can't just leave. We need transition time. There are active projects. All documented in the shared drive," I said calmly. "You'll manage. After all, Bella's in charge now." Brenda started on the usual HR script about ineligible for rehire, burning bridges, blah blah blah. I cut her off. "I've already got interviews lined up," I lied. Okay, maybe not totally a lie. I had one recruiter who liked my LinkedIn profile. That counts. I packed my desk in 10 minutes flat. Todd, the guy who microwaved fish in the office kitchen, helped me carry my box to the car. He looked like someone watching a rock star trash a hotel room in slow motion. "Dude, are you really just walking out?" "Yep. That's actually kind of badass. You should try it sometime, Todd." "I might," he said, eyes wide. I drove home at 11:30 a.m. on a Tuesday with the windows down and music blasting like I was 18 again. For the first time in 5 years, my chest didn't feel like a vice grip. But the best part? That was only the beginning. Bella broke on a Thursday. I knew it was coming. You don't drop someone who still types. Per my last email. With 2 hours into a fire pit and expect them not to catch. Anna texted me around noon. "Bella's crying in the bathroom. Steve is in the hallway whisper yelling on the phone." "What did you do?" "Me? I did nothing. I just stopped doing everything. Here's what happened. Since I left, 3 major clients had called in to complain. Not once. Not twice. But daily. The reports I used to automate? Bella couldn't even find the template. The vendor accounts? She didn't know who handled which ones, or that the renewal contracts had to be renegotiated every quarter. You'd think she'd ask Steve. But no, she kept trying to ask me. She cornered me in the lobby the day after I resigned, fluttering like a lost intern. "Charlie, quick question. Do you remember how we pulled the client SLA report for Q2? "Sorry," I said. "You should probably talk to your manager." Her face dropped like she forgot gravity worked on emotions. Then came the bomb. I got a call from a recruiter I'd been chatting with. The job I wanted? Offer pending background check. Simple enough. But a few days later she called again. Her voice was careful. "Hey Charlie. We spoke to your previous employer. Something odd came up." "Oh?" "They mentioned performance issues. That you left abruptly. That there was a pattern of resistance to team collaboration." Ah. The knife. Twisting. I felt it. That old stomach drop feeling when you realize you're still being punished, even after you walk away. "I'd love to explain," I said, keeping my voice level. "Because that's not just false, it's defamatory." Silence. Then, "Charlie, are you pursuing any legal action?" "Not yet," I replied. "But I'm open to it." That's when I called a lawyer. Greg. Mid-50s. Looked like he was born in a courthouse. His first words after I laid it all out. "Oh, they're stupid. We filed for wrongful termination retaliation and began documenting everything, emails, Slack messages, voicemail transcripts. Greg was giddy. But here's the twist. 2 days later, I got an anonymous email. Subject: you should see this. Attached: an email chain between Steve and the VP. Forwarded. Accidentally CC'd to a shared contact, apparently. In it, they discussed how to manage the Charlie situation. VP wrote, "We need to be proactive. He's got influence in the department. Make sure Bella gets ahead of this. If he tanks her, it'll reflect poorly on all of us." Steve replied, "I'll talk to HR. If he doesn't cooperate, we start building the file." They had planned the PIP before I even said no. Planned to bury me for refusing to carry a department they were too cowardly to manage. That was the turning point. Greg's eyes lit up like a man who just found a winning lottery ticket in his glove box. "This is retaliation. Malicious. We're not just suing," he said. "We're going scorched earth." And that's when I made my real move. I posted a short, polite message on LinkedIn. After 5 years of building systems and relationships from the ground up, I was passed over for a promotion in favor of someone I trained. When I declined to train my replacement, I was labeled uncooperative and forced out. I've since learned that this wasn't an isolated incident. I'm pursuing legal action. If this resonates with your experience, I'd love to talk. It was like lighting a match in a room full of kerosene. Comments started pouring in. DMs, former employees, current employees, people from other companies who recognized the playbook. And one message in particular caught my eye. "Hi. I think I know exactly what you're going through. They did the same thing to me. Can we talk?" Her name was April. Former project manager. Forced out last year. She wasn't the first. And she definitely wouldn't be the last. April had the kind of voice you only get from corporate trauma, measured calm, but always one syllable away from a breakdown or a lawsuit. "They gassed at me for months," she said. "Made me think I was overreacting. Then after I complained about being overworked, they handed my projects to a junior analyst and told me to focus on attitude." I already knew how her story ended: PIP, then termination, then a whisper campaign every time she applied somewhere else. She'd been unemployed for 6 months. The same VP had signed her exit paperwork. 2 days after we talked, she became my co-plaintiff. Then came James. James was the guy who'd reported a safety violation, literally just asked if they could maybe stop stacking heavy boxes in front of emergency exits, and 3 weeks later was let go for unreliable attendance. He'd never missed a day. Greg was thrilled. "This is now a pattern," he said. "Systemic retaliation. That's going to be very hard for them to explain to a judge." What came next was something I was not ready for. Discovery. Turns out, when you sue a company for retaliation, you get access to their internal communications. Emails, chats, memos. It was like peeling back drywall and finding a rat colony with a full social calendar. Greg forwarded me one document with the subject line: "Confidential, do not distribute." Title: Internal Talent Review, Risk Assessments, and Loyalty Flags. Yeah. That was real. My name was there. So were April's and James's. Next to me, in all caps: high risk, influence rank. Likely to push back. Watch closely. James had loyalty concerns, reported safety issues escalate. April's was the worst. Personality challenge. Difficult. May seek outside support. I sat there reading those words and realized, this wasn't about me. Or Bella. Or even Steve. This was a full-blown culture of control. A quiet war against anyone who rocked the boat. And they'd been tracking us like insurgents. Greg was practically vibrating. "We can take this to court," he said. "Or we can take them." Then came the biggest twist yet. Another anonymous email. Same sender as before. Subject: Zach has been talking to companies about you. Zach. My older brother. The same golden boy who spent his whole life walking through doors I had to break down. Turns out Zach, my very own flesh and blood, had been calling around, warning people about my instability and disrespect toward leadership. Why? Because Zach worked in logistics too. And apparently, my little rebellion was bad for the family name. I forwarded the emails to Greg, who paused and then said flatly, "Oh. Good. We can add tortious interference and defamation now." I couldn't breathe. My own brother had sabotaged me. Worked with my former employer to smear my name. Had full-blown email chains with the VP where he said things like, "She's always been emotional. Probably needs some tough love." She, by the way, was me. I had a unisex name. They never bothered to fact-check. Greg laughed. "They're too stupid to be careful. This is better than Christmas." He updated the lawsuit that night, adding my brother as a co-defendant. The next morning, I got a text from my mom. "You sued your brother? You're tearing this family apart." No, I thought. Zach did that when he chose corporate loyalty over blood. But don't worry, I didn't respond. Because the response was coming. And it was going to hit like a freight train. The freight train hit exactly 2 weeks later. Greg walked into our meeting with a box. Not a metaphorical box. A literal cardboard box full of printed emails, Slack logs, internal memos, courtesy of court-ordered discovery. He dropped it on the table like it owed him money. "They didn't just retaliate against you," he said, flipping open the top. "They'd been doing this for years." He handed me one document. The title was almost hilarious in how blunt it was. "Do not rehire list. Shared internal use only." I skimmed. There were dozens of names. Each one with a code next to it. L for litigious. N for non-compliant. S for soft risk. And the most common one. W, warn others. I found mine. Charlie, last name, L/W, escalated behavior, undermined leadership. Do not engage. April. James. Both on it. Some even had red stars. Red stars mean they're considered threats to the network. Greg explained. It's an inter-company blacklist. HR teams from at least 7 companies are in on this. I looked up at him. So they weren't just tanking me out of spite. This is coordinated. Oh yeah, he said. They've been circling the wagons on people who push back. Sharing intel, blocking hires. Whole damn industry handshake. Suddenly, every rejection email I got made sense. We've decided to go in another direction. Wasn't about fit, it was about flagging. And that's when Greg smiled in a way that was deeply unsettling for the opposing counsel. We're going to subpoena their network. I nodded slowly. And Zach? Greg held up another document. Zach forwarded them talking points. Literally told the VP how to phrase the concerns about you. Said, quote, "If she tries to sue, make it about attitude. Not performance." I laughed. Loud and hard. Not because it was funny, but because my brother had just professionally self-immolated and didn't even realize the match was in his hand the whole time. Greg added him to the defamation and interference counts. A week later, the opposing lawyers tried to settle. Low 6 figures, they said. Confidentiality clause. No admission of wrongdoing, Greg said. We're not settling. You people built a career guillotine and used it on anyone who didn't bow down. This is bigger than money now. Then the media got wind of it. A legal blog published the docket. Local news picked it up the next day. Headline: Ex-employee sues logistics giant over blacklist network. Family member named as co-defendant. LinkedIn? Exploded. People from all over started messaging me. This happened to me, too. I thought I was the only one. They told my next job I was unstable. I've been unemployed for a year. Greg couldn't even keep up. We added 4 more plaintiffs. And then one name popped up in my DMs that made my stomach twist. Michelle. My cousin. Charlie, she wrote. I've been waiting for you to blow the lid off this thing. We met for coffee that weekend. She looked around like she was afraid HR might jump out of a planter. Then she dropped the bomb. When I was 19, I applied for that training program at Logistics Corps. I was a finalist. Then out of nowhere, I was dropped. My mom later told me your dad called them. Said I wasn't reliable. Wait, why would Dad do that? Because Zach applied for the same spot. I blinked. You're telling me my dad sabotaged your application to help Zach? Michelle nodded. Same story. Different year. That's when I realized this wasn't just company culture. This was family culture. Zach got every open door. I got the ones I kicked off the hinges. And this time? I wasn't letting the door close behind me. The pressure was building. The emails were damning. And the network? It was already starting to crack. Next up, trial prep. And a front row seat to watching Steve, Bella, and my own brother try to squirm their way out of it. The courtroom was beige, cold, and buzzing with quiet dread. The kind of place where reputations came to die in silence. Steve sat at the defense table with a lawyer who looked like he billed by the minute and judged people who ate lunch at their desks. Bella wasn't there. She'd officially left the industry, according to her LinkedIn. VP was stone-faced, probably still praying someone pulled the fire alarm. And then there was Zach, my older brother, sitting 2 seats down, trying to look composed but bouncing his leg like he was riding a jackhammer. No one from our family showed up to support him. Not even our parents. Not after the subpoenaed emails dropped. Greg opened clean, professional. Just the facts. Then he played the audio. An HR meeting recorded by one of the other plaintiffs. Steve saying, "If he doesn't fall in line, we'll make it look like he's the problem." Gasps. Murmurs. The judge called for silence. Steve paled. Then came the emails. The ones between Zach and the VP, where my own brother said I was too emotional to lead, easily threatened by change, and likely to seek revenge if passed over. Emails sent weeks before I even applied for the promotion. Greg tore through cross-examinations like a surgeon. The VP tried to claim they had no official blacklist, but we had the list. With headers. With timestamps. With color-coded risk levels. April and James testified like pros. Calm, clear, devastating. Told the jury exactly what had happened to them. How their careers were derailed by whispers and private Slack channels labeled HR_burn after reading. Then it was my turn. I looked directly at the jury and said the one sentence I'd been waiting a year to say. They didn't just take my job, they tried to erase my future. Steve wouldn't look at me. Zach did. But only once. And when he did, I saw it, fear. Not of the trial. Of what came after. Greg's final argument was surgical. You cannot call it professionalism when someone stays quiet and insubordination when they speak up. You cannot call it leadership when you promote silence and punish competence. And you definitely cannot conspire to ruin someone's career and call it business. The jury took 2 days. Unanimous verdict. Heavy checkmark wrongful termination. Heavy checkmark retaliation. Heavy checkmark defamation. Heavy checkmark tortious interference. Heavy checkmark punitive damages. They awarded damages to all 4 plaintiffs. Significant ones. Mine alone was enough to buy a house, outright. But the money wasn't the best part. It was what came next. The story hit Bloomberg. Then Forbes. Then the New York Times. Blacklisting in white collars was the headline. Steve was fired. VP resigned. HR director, gone. The entire company folded 6 months later. Zach? Blackballed from logistics entirely. One by one, his contacts vanished. His company let him go in quiet shame. He moved back in with our parents. Michelle told me he's selling insurance now. And crying a lot. I never spoke to him again. Our parents sent a single email after the verdict. We hope you're proud of what you've done. I didn't reply. But if I had? Yes. I am. April and James started a consulting firm, focused on ethical HR and career recovery for whistleblowers. I invested in it. And me? I took 6 months off. Traveled. Slept in. Breathed. Then I joined a company that looked at my resume and said, "You've built more than most VPs ever touch." I'm not their band-aid. I'm their blueprint. Greg still sends me the occasional update when another ex-employee joins a suit. We're up to 9 now. Steve's name? Now a cautionary tale at HR conferences. Bella deleted social media. VP teaches a business ethics course at a for-profit online college. Zach deactivated LinkedIn. I kept one thing from it all, framed on my office wall. The original email from HR that said I was damaging morale. I put a sticky note over it that says, "Only if you're the problem." Because I wasn't. And I never was. They just thought I'd stay quiet. They were wrong.